Hello, everyone, and welcome back for our last but not least match of the day. My name is Sierra Hunter, joined here by Costa. How you doing, man?
Yeah, doing good. It's been a fantastic day, honestly. I think we've seen Italy going ahead and progress onto the finals. We know the score is set right now. Of course, it's 5 wins for Italy, 1 win for South Korea. This is going to be the final set, of course, so we're still going to be showing you some high-level action between some two great trainers. So I am looking forward to it. Of course, commiserations to South Korea. They have done astonishingly well to be able to reach this stage, so that's why we're going to be going ahead and doing the honors of being able to bring you lovely people at home this final great match between both of these countries.
Of course, being able to make it to the semis, you know that these players are skilled and they have what it takes. This week wasn't it. Italy, I feel, has had their number at every turn here, but these have still been some fantastic, fun matches to be watching here. So even if we know at this point Italy is moving forward, these have still been some fantastic matches to watch, and I'm really excited to be watching this last one of the day. Of course, pride on the line here. It's going to be against Daniele Spuntarelli versus Ji-Seok Lee here.
Yeah, so some really interesting teams as well that both of these trainers are going to be bringing for this match. Of course, we're going to be starting off with Ji-Seok Lee bringing the Zacian, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Landorus Incarnate, Urshifu, Single Strike, and the Suicune. So, of course, the return Sierra of the Fire Water Grass Core, accompanied by that Zacian for that immediate damage output, whilst Landorus has been such a good threat as well to have, versus the stack attackers and any sort of like ground weak Pokemon that we've been seeing rise in the meta recently.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like the single strike variant of Urshifu hasn't been quite as dominant in this format as the rapid strike, but still obviously very much so has a place. Wicked Blow, always with those critical hits, being such a strong move. So definitely still not worth counting out. But heading over to Daniele's team, it is going to be something, we just saw the Zacian. Now here it is for that Calyrex Shadow Rider. These have been two strong, dominant, restricted Pokemon, and it's going to be paired up with a Whimsicott. I'm not too surprised to be seeing that one. The single straight's partner in this, the Rapid Strike Urshifu, and then of course you always have that Fire Water Grass Core. There's going to be an Incineroar and Rillaboom on top of that, and it's all going to be paired up with that nice cute little Nihilego.
Yeah, I mean, quite cute maybe visually, but definitely a threat that you do not want to be looking down upon and when you're up against it. But in this scenario, of course, Ji-Seok does have that Landorus, which I think Nihilego will have to try to be able to find its right position to go into this. As we see, the main sort of difference between both of these teams from the trainers are the fact that the Whimsicott does have Tailwind access and does have that speed advantage over Ji-Seok's Pokemon, whilst over on Ji-Seok's side we do have the Suicune, which is the water type of choice, of course reciprocating quite well to the team synergy of having that dark type Urshifu on the field. You don't want to go with a rapid strike since you're going to be having double water types there. So I do quite like to see the sort of interesting interactions of this matchup, and seeing the fact that Calyrex Shadow Rider is that tiny bit faster, of course, than the Zacian, will be putting so much threat regardless of that Tailwind.
Oh, for sure. I feel like Calyrex Shadow Rider is one of those Pokemon that can literally ride away with the game, but having different counters and keeping it in mind when team building, it can be very easily countered. So it'll be interesting to see what is available on this team to be dealing it. Leads are coming out though. It's going to be Urshifu next to the Rillaboom, and on the other end, Zacian coming out to play right out of the gate next to that Suicune.
Yeah, exactly that. So we are going to be seeing it from Ji-Seok's point of view, of course, and leading with the Zacian and Suicune kind of essentially says, I want to go ahead and position myself quite well, threaten with the damage, whilst maybe even try to force a scenario where I could get a Tailwind of my own up, regardless of the Prankster, not being available on Ji-Seok's side. But over on Daniele's side, they have led with that Rapid Strike Urshifu and the Rillaboom. Rillaboom is really good in trying to threaten down that Suicune. Urshifu in this scenario, it may even try to opt to go for the close combat, to be honest. Maybe try to double up in the Suicune, but of course that does leave GSOC adaptable to try to go for switch outs, which we don't actually see at all.
Yeah, no switch outs at all coming out. Instead, a Grassy Glide hitting into the Suicune, but not quite as devastating as that Play Rough revealed on the Zacian hitting into that Urshifu. Focus Sash does come out though. It's going to hold on with 1 HP, which means it gets this opportunity to be hitting the Surging Strikes into the Suicune though. That Grassy Glide did so much damage, but these Surging Strikes, not enough to be finishing that Pokemon off.
No, not at all. And Suicune doesn't even opt to go for Tailwind. It just goes for that straight up Scald to be able to solidify that KO double up onto that Urshifu on Daniele's side. So a bit of an interesting turn one with no doubt about that. I was quite surprised. Suicune did have a bit more of range to try to go for Tailwind and try to make sure that, for example, if Whimsicott does come out over on Daniele's side as a switch in, it will at least be able to be matched with the Tailwind. But we do actually see Calyrex Shadow Rider joining right now, and with the situation at the moment, Suicune is susceptible to getting KO'd essentially from that Grassy Glide, and if there's any sort of switch-ins, any sort of switch-in will be taking that damage. So I do find it quite interesting though, to be honest, that the Urshifu didn't try to go for the close combat there, as it would have been able to pick up the KO on that Suicune.
Yeah, maybe just really looking into that slot, thinking 36 might have been able to have been enough, or looking for that potential swap into that slot to catch something. But said that Suicune is going to be sticking around. There's going to be the swap from the Rillaboom on the other end though, going into Incineroar, but Suicune not wanting to fear potentially being KO'd too early on before it can move, going to be going for a helping hand into the Zacian. Astro Barrage, no surprise, is going to be taking that Suicune down. Nice little Grim Neigh special attack boost on top of that all, but now it's going to be down to this Behemoth Blade. How much this can be doing to this Calyrex. It is helping hand boosted, and Zacian is a strong dog, and it is going to be able to take this threat out.
Yeah, I do really like the helping hand play there. We've been seeing it definitely rise in popularity as of late, as you are essentially able to nullify that Intimidate coming out from the Incineroar with the switch in there and try to guarantee that you can definitely get the KO onto the Calyrex. So very good play from GSOC there, able to essentially get rid of Daniele's restricted, leaving them with their last 2 Pokemon. So I do really like the scenario for GSOC. They have to be a bit cautious on making sure that the Zacian doesn't essentially get knocked out from that Incineroar, because that is still the main threat right now. Maybe switching it out could make a lot of sense. You want to try to reposition. GSOC does still have that 3rd Pokemon available to them in the back, as Urshifu, you know, does Urshifu things, to be honest. You want to be able to go ahead, maybe get a Detect up if you want to play it safe for this turn, you know, so you don't have to encounter any sort of fake out coming out from Daniele's side, as both the Rillaboom and Incineroar in general are the fake out users. But of course, you want to try to position yourself to the point where you can finish off this game, as we do see Zacian go for the Protect.
Yeah, double Protect coming out, Urshifu going for it as well. I mean, you can get past these fake out turns, and you can get a little bit of recovery on top of that. So there is absolutely no harm in being able to go for that this time around. Incineroar as well went for that Flare Blitz into that Zacian. So looking to just deal some damage, maybe catch the Zacian off guard, but no such luck.
Well, yeah, it's kind of what we said right now. In this scenario, you just want to try to make sure that you don't get caught out by any sort of fake outs if you are GSOC, and that's essentially what they did. So I wouldn't be surprised to see any sort of switch outs right now from the Zacian. You want to try to make sure that at least it could have the regular damage output that it would, but no switch outs. We just see the Grassy Glide come out from that Rillaboom, breaking a potential Focus Sash on Urshifu.
Yeah, versus Sash, but not really having too much impact other than that. Zacian going to be firing into this Rillaboom slot with the Behemoth Blade. I mean, it has been dropped down with Intimidates from this Incineroar, but still deals about half of its health. But Urshifu with a lot more than that into that Incineroar slot. Brings it right down, doesn't quite pick up the KO, and of course, bringing it down to that range does give it the opportunity to be giving it that Citrus Berry recovery. That being said, Survival means it gets to attack now into that Zacian slot. No chance. Zacian is going to be going down here, as we're going to have an even 2v2 Pokemon split, though. These Pokemon on Daniele's side not looking so hot.
No, I mean, well, I'd argue that Incineroar was quite hot there with that Flare Blitz, but
it's true.
But in this scenario, I think it's the fact that G-Suck, of course, they have more resources available to their side. So at this point, I think Daniele might also be trying to, you know, scout out for any additional information that could help out their side of the field. As I do think this is G-Suck's game 1 win right now. You just want to go ahead and make sure that you could apply any sort of damage. You see the fake out interaction there into the opposing Rillaboom. Just another close combat, picks up the KO onto Incineroar, and if for whatever reason, of course, this Urshifu does go down the following turn, maybe due to Grassy Glide priority, we should be seeing G-Suck's Rillaboom come out triumphant. But then again, it does actually depend on speed training and interactions between both of these Pokemon.
It does come down to the speed training and the other interactions, but what it's not going to be coming down to is that Grassy Glide that ended up actually being the last turn of it. So it will come down to how they're trained in other ways, but this is not looking good for Daniele here. Rillaboom sitting at less than half of its HP and recognizing that it's not going to be able to take down these two absolute threats with a lot more HP to their name. Going to be tossing in the towel for that one.
Yeah, and I think it was quite interesting essentially play out from both of these trainers during that game 1. Quite, you know, like quick and highly offensive, not what you would expect when you have a Suicune. Suicune just wanted to make sure that it can guarantee the Urshifu Rapid Strike KO on Daniele's side of the field. You're able to reduce the slots available down to 3. So that was, I think, what G-Suck was trying to go for there, henceforth why they didn't actually opt to go for that Tailwind. They're able to go ahead and completely utilize that Suicune. Even though it was at such low range of HP, it was able to go ahead, get that helping handed boosted Behemoth Blade, pick up the KO on Calyrex, and we saw Calyrex Shadow Rider was a Life Orb variant, so they don't tend to be bulky at all there. They do fall victim, of course, to that Behemoth Blade regularly, if it is, of course, escorted by that +1 Zacian due to the Intrepid Sword ability. So G-Suck absolutely utilized their situation fantastically, to be honest, as Daniele is going to really have to try to bring this one back. They had no Tailwind on their side of the field, so maybe that could try to better situate them, but it's so tough for Daniele's Calyrex Shadow Rider when you're up against an Urshifu single strike, which does have that dark typing.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about how Rapid Strike was the more dominant of the two variants in terms of what we see, but Urshifu Single Strike having some fantastic coverage options, and of course this is a fantastic matchup for it in particular, so a little bit of a tricky situation here for Daniele with that. So it'll be interesting to see what is done in this game to be able to adjust for that. As you said, that Tailwind option with the Whimsicott may be something to look for, but instead it's going to be an adjustment in different ways. So there's going to be the Rillaboom and the Urshifu to lead here, facing down against Incineroar and Suicune.
Yeah, so at least now from G-Suck's side, when it comes to leads, the Incineroar is going to be able to go ahead and get an Intimidate on both of the Urshifu and that Rillaboom right there. Of course, that's quite good because typically Urshifus, regardless of which variant they are, they don't tend to pick up a KO onto Incineroars whilst at -1 with close combat. So it's able to at least guarantee that. I'm not sure about the double up with the Rillaboom there, but in this situation, G-Suck has essentially said to Daniele, okay, look, I'm gonna try to separate your focus on which Pokemon you need to target right now. Suicune can still opt to go for that speed control if it so chooses to be honest, but at the cost of you know, not getting an attack off, maybe staying in against this Rillaboom and having to, you know, have a lot of damage incurred onto it, which is not what it wants to do. But then again, in this scenario, with the way that G-Suck's been playing the Suicune, it's just there to try to better utilize immediately if it can.
Oh, for sure, but no Grassy Glide this time around. Instead, looking to be going for that fake out into the Incineroar as Surging Strikes coming out from the Urshifu. We saw how little damage this did to the Suicune in the previous game, but Incineroar, of course, not going to be appreciating that at all. Of course, that second hit, bringing it real close down, and it's going to be able to allow it to survive. 3 HP left on it. Suicune fires back with a Scald. Not going to be doing the most damage, but does get that burn.
Oh, what a burn to get as well on that target. Of course, these Surging Strikes, due to the nature of them being able to deal all 3 attacks with critical hits, you're able to essentially negate the effects of Intimidate drops completely. But that burn, no, that's going to be halving all damage output from this Urshifu, regardless of what move, offensive move it wants to go for. So in this scenario, G-Sock, even though it looked like, okay, the Incineroar was going to get KO'd there, they did quite well, and they were able to completely capitalize off of that burn, because that does put a big dent into Daniele's plan, as this Suicune right now might not be susceptible to getting KO'd.
Oh, definitely not quite, at least not from that close combat. Takes a special defense and the defense drop and deals minimal damage in return. Rillaboom is going to U-turn into that Incineroar slot. It was barely holding on here. It is going to be falling, and Daniele getting the opportunity to be pivoting here for something that can maybe handle this weekend a little better.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the best if Daniele could, and they're actually bringing that Calyrex Shadow Rider in.
Yeah, Shadow Rider coming in for Daniele, and G-Sock now has that information. Incineroar going down means that there is going to be a free switch on the board, but first a Scald into that Calyrex. And that was a nice little amount of damage. Critical hit and a... wow. G-Sock with all of the good RNG and energy in this match. Critical hit, both Pokemon being burned from the Scald. What can't this Suicune do right now?
Yeah, I think it was literally what we were just talking about, Sierra. The fact that this Suicune, at the moment, doesn't look like it's being used for the normal role that it would be filling in. No, its role right now is going on the offensive, being able to go ahead and incur all of these burns on Daniele's side of the field. Not quite lucky if you're on Daniele's side right there. Quite unfortunate, actually, as we are going to be seeing G-Sock now bringing the Zacian. And sure, of course, the damage output of this Calyrex Shadow Rider isn't affected by that burn, but what it does mean is the fact that it will not be able to regain that residual HP recovery over time from this. And I'm quite surprised the fact that G-Sock has not opted to go for Tailwind at all. They've just been going for Scald and I think Helping Hand in game 1. So I'm quite fascinated by the way that G-Sock's actually playing this Suicune right now. And so far, honestly, it's been paying off for them, to be quite frank, as the Zacian is on the field right now. I think the Suicune may be wanting to try to get that Tailwind finally up, but it's all going to come down to if Daniele's double up efforts from the Calyrex Shadow Rider and Urshifu are going to be enough to pick up a KO on the Suicune, but the Urshifu's switching out.
Yeah, no double up potential this time around. Instead, Intimidate from the Incineroar to slow down this Zacian just this little bit, bringing it down to neutral, and of course Fake Out Pressure next turn onto that Zacian slot. Calyrex, though, not looking to make any impact either, is just going to be going for the Protect, and so is the Zacian. If Suicune went for a Tailwind, this is going to be free, but instead, Snarl instead, of course, Calyrex going for that Protect means nothing's going to happen but the lightest of chip onto this Incineroar, and a special attack drop that isn't going to matter.
Well, yeah, exactly that. It definitely does not matter there. Suicune is able to go ahead and recover to maximum HP due to that grass terrain recovery over time, same as Incineroar. But in this scenario, it was quite interesting to see that G-Sock didn't opt to go for that Tailwind. They wanted to try to go ahead and at least try to cover for any sort of Calyrex Shadow Rider substitute plays there, because you would have been able to still deal so much damage, completely negate the substitute being set up due to the fact that, of course, that Snarl is acoustically based. It's a sound-based move. But in this scenario, we don't actually see the Zacian switch out, which I'm quite surprised to see.
Yeah, it said it's going to be taking that Fake Out, and sure enough, right to follow, it's going to be an Astral Barrage from this Calyrex. Both Pokemon holding on at around half of their HP here in Suicune. Going to be going for that Snarl yet again. That is a good amount of damage onto this Calyrex here. Of course, special attack drop on top of that, and it's looking real low here. Of course, a little bit of grassy terrain recovery, but that's not going to be going too far with that burn to follow.
Oh, exactly that. It's essentially going to be negating that recovery completely there. And from GSOC's side, I am still quite surprised and intrigued by the way that they're playing. I do really like it. It's paying off so well for them because they're able to have so much momentum. And of course, you do have to consider that they did win that game 1-2. So all of the pressure's on Daniele right now. It's been unfortunate with the burns, which have not been the best. Even that critical hit as well from that Scald burn during the same turn onto the Calyrex. It took up so much of a chunk of damage there off of that Calyrex. But at this point, I do feel that Zacian may consider trying to switch out at least to try to reposition. But then again, GSOC has a strategy going into this, and they're not wanting to switch it out as Calyrex goes for the protect.
I feel like the strategy is just full force ahead against this horse. There's honestly, I can't even talk at this point. Scald going into this Incineroar slot as both the Calyrex and the Zacian opt to just protect this turn, both restricted, keeping nice and safe. And I can't help to imagine what would have happened for Chisakli. I know you've been saying that you've liked how he's played this weekend so far, but like that one turn where the Tailwind would have been so free, I can't imagine like what momentum he would have had at this point if that's what he would have gone for.
Well, yeah, and to be quite frank as well, it's the fact that this Suicune isn't being directly threatened, it's just recovering HP over time, and now that the Calyrex is at -1 of its special attack, it's not going to be dealing as much damage, and the Zacians are well out of range of getting KO'd by this Calyrex as well, so the Suicune isn't essentially being threatened to the point where your Daniele will be able to get rid of it during that turn. So I think it's quite vital that you have to try to get rid of it. It's just putting in so much work for GSOC's side. So Daniele does need to try to regain that momentum as best as possible, and they're going to try by switching the Incineroar out and now bringing that priority-based Grassy Glide Rillaboom in.
Yeah, that is a good swap here, especially with us having that little bit of an inside peek on what GSOC was considering on his end. Astro Barrage coming out from the Calyrex, of course, it is at a -1. Not too much happening to this Suicune, but a decent little chunk onto this Zacian, though. It will get to fire back with a Play Rough into this Rillaboom, bringing it down to about half as Scald comes out. Very little damage here, and luck ran out just a little bit. No burn.
Yeah, I think at this point we're quite surprised to not see it land.
Right?
Yeah, so, and of course we do see the Life Orb recoil slowly chunking away at Calyrex Shadow Rider's HP there. So at this point, even though the Rillaboom is on the field finally for Daniele's side, it's still not in the best situation due to the fact that that Play Rough was able to deal that very good chunk of damage onto itself on the switch-in. So at this point, it's still up in the air. It's not completely over for either trainer's side, as it's just still going to be based around the positioning here. And talking about position, we're going to be seeing that Suicune try to switch out for the Rillaboom of GSOC's.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to not let your Suicune go down from a Grassy Glide. Zacian 2 going to be going for that protect, and Rillaboom takes that Grassy Glide so well. Astro Barrage from this Calyrex, of course, nothing happening to that Zacian. A knockout there would have been so nice. Instead, a nice chunk of damage into that Rillaboom, but of course, that Life Orb recoil means it's not going to be picking up a KO, and it's going to be going down.
Yeah, that was essentially a timer that Daniele did not want to see, as the HP was just counting down with every attack they were able to get off due to that Life Orb recoil there. So quite nice for GSOC's side. They do have Fake Out available on their side of the field. They have Grassy Glide available if that Urshifu Rapid Strike wants to try to come back onto the field. But let's not forget, ladies and gents, it is burnt. It's not in the best scenario right now for itself. But we do see that Incineroar switching in on Daniele side, able to get that drop of attack on both the Rillaboom and the Zacian. So Zacian, who knows, maybe he'll switch out, maybe he won't. I think at this point GSOC just knows that they're in a really good position and they want to try to whittle down Daniele's Pokemon as best as possible, and so far that strategy is completely working. And you see why being able to just guarantee damage over time is so crucial. Even if you're not in the best situation with that particular Pokemon and you feel like, okay, I can switch it in, you go off of the basis of your opponent will expect that, but let me just go for what they don't expect.
Oh, for sure. But what was to be expected was a fake out into a slot, and it was the Rillaboom. Going to be followed up with a play rough from that Zacian. Not going to be dealing a KO there with that Intimidate that had happened previously, and instead, it's going to be Rillaboom on G-Sock's side going to be going down from this Flare Blitz from Incineroar, and a nice little treat. That recoil brings it just down to enough HP to where it gets its berry recovery.
Yeah, exactly that. And in this scenario, it's quite interesting because now GSoC is left with their final 2 Pokemon versus Daniele's 3. So obviously Rapid Strike Urshifu is burnt. It doesn't have that much HP in the back for Daniele's side. So it would have been nice to see GSoC try to preserve that Rillaboom as best as possible there. But regardless, I think the speed control at least is on their side of the field. I'm not sure if Grassy Glide in grass terrain from Rillaboom is enough to pick up the KO on this Suicune. It may just be well within the range to do so, but GSoC is going to try to have to bring this back if they can as best as possible, and Daniele on their side of the field need to try to exert that dominant pressure and pick up the KO.
Here it is, the Grassy Glide. It is going to be enough here. Suicune going to be falling, and what was it kind of about now looking not so fantastic. GSoC's favor here. Play rough doing minimal damage as Flare Blitz doing all of the damage here. Zacian going to be falling now, and we're going to be going 1-1 in this series.
Yeah, Daniele putting in all the stops to force this into a Game 3 scenario. Of course, we did mention that this is battle for pride right now, but both of these trainers at this stage, of course, they want to try to do the best that they can, not only for the teams, but for themselves as well. They want to try to go ahead and guarantee that win so they could give that, that mental boost as well in general. We don't know what stage, if this was the order that was taken when they were playing, but regardless, I think it's so far been a great show from both of these trainers. I do think on GSoC's side, maybe that Zacian, if they could have switched it out at some point, try to refresh it so it doesn't have all of these Intimidate drops, may have been quite helpful, to be honest, so you could be able to go ahead and exert even more damage output. But we didn't see that. We did see Daniele, though, persist and just go for it. In the end, they did end up having more resources available.
Yeah, for sure. Even with that Calyrex going down with that life orb damage just consistently over time, just being chipped away with that and the burn, it was able to do just enough consistent damage to really just put Daniele in a favorable position here. So I'm excited to see how the adjustments are going to be for this Game 3. And like you said, pride on the line here. We don't know at which point these matches were done, but at the same time, these teams have made it to semis. Even if you knew that nail was in the coffin at this point, you want to come out and have a good showing and a good match and just show what you can do, because obviously these are skilled players to be making it this far in the competition.
Well, exactly that, and you're at the point where this is the final platform. This is the moment where you're going to try to push to go to finals so you can go ahead and crown yourself, your team, and your nation as champions for the World Cup of Victory Road. So at this point, a lot may have been on the line in that particular timing, but in this scenario, I do want to see a bit more of support from this Suicune. We saw how well the helping hand worked out for GSoC in Game 1. I want to maybe try to see a bit more of a tailwind or even further force the snarls there, because I think there was an opportunity where it could have gone for a second snarl, and that may have even picked up the KO on that Calyrex there if it was able to connect.
Yeah, I would love to see the opportunity for the Tailwind just outspeed this Calyrex and not even let it do what it wants with those Astro Barrage. And that Calyrex is actually going to be here to lead Rillaboom for its partner, facing down against this ever so pesky Suicune and Zacian. And this is a fun adjustment here.
Yeah, definitely is, as we're going to be seeing a very interesting, intricate situation go on here. You've got the Rillaboom, which checkmates essentially, not checkmates completely, but with the help of that Astral Barrage, it definitely checkmates that Suicune. Zacian is open to getting KO'd here. It will come down to whether GSoC wants to stay in with it and survive with the Zacian, pick up the KO on that Calyrex, or if there's going to be any sort of further mind games with the Rillaboom actually opting to go for Fake Out. So a lot of different pieces to this turn 1, a lot of the different Pokemon not counting, but essentially checking each other based on how this situation will go, because we do have to take into consideration, of course, the fact that you've got priority over on Daniele's side and speed escorted with that.
Yeah, one thing to stop a priority Grassy Glide from absolutely messing up your Suicune, though, is just going for a switch. Incineroar coming out, nice little Intimidate and attack drop onto that Rillaboom. And Zacian as well, not wanting to risk any sort of fake out, just going to go for that Protect. And it turns out Daniele was going to prioritize into that Suicune slot. Grassy Glide coming out, minimal damage to this Incineroar. And of course, Zacian's going to stay safe from this Astral Barrage, and Incineroar doesn't really care too much about it either.
Well, yeah, it's still going to be taking a bit of damage, but obviously it is, oh, my lord. I forgot my words, my lord. It does resist the Ghost typing due to its Dark typing. So, very safe play from G-Suck's side, but I do really like it, because in the end of the day, you can have that Intimidate on the Rillaboom, fake out pressure onto that Rillaboom, as well as try to threaten that Calyrex with a Dark type move, if you do, of course, have a Zacian. Even though it did protect there, I think it's in full swing availability to just go for damage. This is G-Suck's turn right now to try to force any damage in any potential switch-ins Daniele might try to reposition with, as they need to try to get out of this scenario. The Calyrex doesn't do as much, unfortunately, against this Incineroar, and even the Urshifu in the back as Rilla does switch out.
Yeah, Rillaboom not really looking too good against either of these. Gonna swap out to Incineroar, of course. Incineroar Intimidate, so nice onto Zacian. Zacian is such a strong restricted, but that is a surefire way to be able to really limit what it's gonna be do. And it's gonna be Daniele's turn to be protecting this time around. And such a nice time protect as well. G-Suck wanting to be going for that damage is not gonna find any available into that Calyrex, but at least targets the U-turn into what was the Rillaboom slot and go for a little bit of a pivot of his own, which is going to be that Suicune.
Yeah, and I think from this interaction, the fact that you're able to bring that Suicune on the field right now versus his Calyrex and Incineroar is so good. It adds a lot of mileage for G-Suck's side when it comes to their momentum, as Snarl will go straight through to that Calyrex. It will connect with it. You could even set up that Tailwind if you so want to. But the point of the matter is the fact that Suicune does have that inner focus ability. It cannot get faked out from this Incineroar, which at this point is threatening to do that. The Zacian, depending on how G-Suck wants to play right now, I feel like it could want to try to retreat in this scenario, maybe bringing that Rillaboom or even that Incineroar of your own if possible, as in the end of the day you want to try to get the correct Pokemon in the correct time, which is what both trainers have been trying to do. They've been trying to reposition, and so far they've been doing quite well, but one of the trainers needs to read that extra additional step if they want to get ahead in this game.
Oh, for sure. And look at this pivoting slot here on Daniele's side. Incineroar going back out for this Incineroar and Astral Barrage. Going to be able to connect with both slots here with no Protect to be seen. Zacian taking a really good chunk of damage here, but looking to input that back out. Behemoth Blade coming out onto the board. Going to be hitting into that Calyrex. Not going to quite do enough for that KO. That Intimidate proving so useful their turn go before. Of course, Scald from the Suicune will connect onto this Rillaboom, but no more luck to be found. It's not going to be able to get that burn.
Yeah, and from one point, I can expect that G-Suck was maybe wanting to try to deal as much damage as they could onto maybe that Incineroar there, try to chip it down as much as possible, that is. But I do feel that a Snarl was very free in that scenario too, or even a Tailwind, because even though you did great damage onto that Calyrex with that Behemoth Blade and you just went for the target, you weren't quite able to pick up the KO due to the Intimidate on the previous turn, but you wanted to try to completely capitalize off of that if you could. And if they did connect with that Snarl, they would have absolutely got rid of Calyrex from this game 3 and given themselves a lot of momentum going into this, as I'm expecting right now another Incineroar shuffle in, shuffle out scenario, as you want to try to be able to better position yourself for future turns up against this Rillaboom and the Calyrex.
Oh, for sure. It feels like Incineroar is one of those Pokemons every day they're shuffling, and this time around it's going to be on G-Suck's side, as Zacian going to be switching out out. Not really wanting to be taking potentially another Intimidate as well. Being able to get the Intimidate on the opposing Rillaboom is going to be super nice here. Astro Bros, yet a gun, doing so much to the Suicune, bringing it right down into the red, putting itself real low with that life orb. But Intimidate means this U-turn's not going to be able to quite pick up this KO on the Suicune, so it can stick around for a little bit longer.
Yeah, so we saw in that scenario, Daniele tried to go for the read there, not expecting that Suicune to stay in, but G-Shock said, no, I'm just going to stay in with my Suicune. I do not care in this scenario. I want to be able to at least guarantee any sort of move that's going to come out. We still haven't seen it due to that pivoting, and there it is. Snarl does connect onto the Calyrex. It picks up the KO, which does give that additional momentum for G-Shock there. Even though the Incineroar is on the field and the Rillaboom maybe opted to be brought back in right now, you do have pressure from your side of the field. You do have G-Shock's Incineroar available for going for fake outs and maybe trying to once again try to get rid of the damage, or do as much damage as you can onto this Incineroar on Daniele said, because so far you want to try to get rid of all those available slots that Daniele has.
Oh, for sure, but at least that Calyrex going down is a good start there. But in its place, Urshifu coming out to play. Of course, it doesn't really appreciate staring down a Rillaboom, but at this moment, it doesn't really have to, and it gets to, you know, have its pick of the field here.
Yeah, it definitely does, and at this point, Urshifu being the revealed Pokemon is so good for Daniele. You can directly threaten both the Incineroar and the Suicune, and we did actually see the grass terrain does end after this turn, so Daniele thinking strategically, wanting to bring the Rillaboom in after, that will allow you to reset that grass terrain, as we're going to be seeing fake out from one Incineroar to the other.
Of course, and the follow-up is going to be the close combat. It's going to be targeted into the Suicune slot, though, not wanting the Suicune to make up any more ground. One KO was enough for you. It's close combat going to be taking it out.
Yeah, and I was going to say maybe Daniele's Incineroar was faster there in that scenario, but I didn't actually see, based on the priorities of where we saw the message mentioning that G-Shock's Incineroar got flinched, it didn't look like they were trying to go for that priority. They were trying to go for a regular attack, that being, whether that be an offensive attack or that parting shot to try to get that pivot action going for themselves. But most importantly, G-Shock now does have that Rillaboom available to themselves. It will be bringing the grass terrain back up yet again, directly threatening this Urshifu, whilst also threatening the potential of going for a fake out based on mind games between both of these players. As G-Shock on their end, I do think maybe switching out the Incineroar may prove to be quite useful here, because you want to try to get that pivot game going, and it's all about repositioning people. This has been a very heavy position-based game, and you've been able to see why, because you've got the fake outs and you've got the direct pressure from both sides of the field.
Oh, for sure, but no pivots this time around. Fake out into the Urshifu, but Rillaboom gonna be taking a huge Flare Blitz in return there. Does able to be holding on, but doesn't really look too fantastic. U-turn though, coming out from G-Shock's Incineroar onto the opposing Incineroar, a little bit of chip, but more importantly, the opportunity to actually go for a pivot and bring the station out safely.
Yeah, and quite a few things of note there in that turn with how it played out. The Urshifu didn't go for any sort of protect there. It was susceptible to the fake out, which of course could have broken any potential focus sash there, as the recovery is not enough to be able to regain it straight up to maximum HP. As the Incineroar went for Flare Blitz, it dealt so much damage onto this Rillaboom, so this kind of gives a hint out to me that Daniele may even think about switching that Urshifu out for a Rillaboom and making sure they could somehow try to pick up a KO on the Rillaboom on G-Shock's end. But the fact that Zacian is now on the field, it is outspeeding everything, is not what Daniele wants to see. All of the pressure and the ball essentially is in G-Shock's side of the field, so it'll be down to them on how they will be able to exert all of this available damage they have to both of Daniele's Pokemon here, because I will expect more pivoting going on here, and I think Daniele has to be honest, because in this scenario, you either have to allow one of your Pokemon to go down, free up that Rillaboom in the back for a free switch, or go for the hard switch that we've just seen right now.
Yeah, the hard switch it is, not wanting that Incineroar to go down, but instead feeling confident in bringing that Rillaboom in, as Urshifu is going to go for the detect this turn around, and just in time. Play rough from Zacian, not going to be hit into anything, though Rillaboom going to be taking a pretty decent chunk of damage from this U-turn from G-Sock's side, and of course, knowing that knowing that it's in, I mean, being able to go for that is just fantastic, and being able to bring this Incineroar in, it'd just be so nice with this Intimidate down on these Pokemon.
Well, yeah, you got the Intimidate, you got the Fake Out Pressure, and more importantly, you've got a Zacian. And there is no Calyrex Shadow Rider on Daniele's side or any sort of Pokemon to outspeed it in order to threaten any sort of KO onto it. So Daniele does have the Incineroar still on their side of the field, so maybe that switch in, switch out scenario will be the likely play we'll see from Daniele's side of the field. You want to try to get any sort of Intimidate drops and attack drops as possible onto the Zacian to try to slow down its momentum with all of the damage it has available to itself. So I would expect that from Daniele's side, and maybe try to go for a U-turn if possible with the Rillaboom and get that pivot action going so you could re-bring the Urshifu back onto the field in the same turn. But in this scenario, from G-Suck's side, you do have the pressure. You just need to make sure that you can target down the correct Pokemon. Even a play rough into the Urshifu would make a lot of sense here, but it'll all come down to what G-Suck thinks Daniele is going to play about.
Oh, for sure. Shifu, though, looking to be switching out, Incineroar coming back in. And that's one of the things about Series 10. There is so much pivoting going on. You don't want to be caught out for even a second, getting faked out where, you know, you need to be attacking. It can just come down to one turn, making all of this difference. Rillaboom going for the fake out. Incineroar going for its own fake out. This is the name of the game here, and not too much happening on this turn, minus one switch.
Well, yeah, and I think that switch was actually quite nice for Daniele's side. I completely forgot that Rillaboom had entered the field in that exact turn as well, and they had Fake Out available to themselves. So Daniele being able to shuffle out that Urshifu, had the Incineroar now on the field, exerting that Fake Out pressure yet again from their side, is exactly what they want to be doing. They want to try to slow down the momentum of G-Suck's Pokemon right now, and they're doing it quite well, actually. So I wouldn't even be surprised to see yet again that synergistic, you know, like reaction pivot from the Rillaboom and the Incineroar once again. One of the Pokemon will end up being on the field at one given time to either go for that pivot or go for the fake out, and that is why these two Pokemon are so strong in the fire grass typing core that they're able to go ahead and exert. And we actually see a reveal of Substitute.
Yeah, Substitute coming out from the Zacian. I really like that. There is going to be the U-turn coming out from Rillaboom on Daniele's side, but Zacian having that opportunity, not in any fear of really getting faked out too much, being able to set that up, just going to prevent it from being faked out in potentially future turns here, though. Facing down Urshifu, kind of scary in that one. Flare Blitz, though, instantly coming out from this Incineroar here. That is one way to be countering the Substitute, is just getting rid of it entirely, though, and that's got to hurt at that point. I mean, the Incineroar going instead for the damage instead of the pivot hurts for G-Sock there, and it's just going to be a pivot on the other end here. U-turn into that Urshifu here, back into Rillaboom.
Well, yeah, like we said, name of the game, pivoting, that's for sure,
yeah.
When it comes to Series 10. And I think this is a perfect example of it. You've got that Fire, Water, Grass core, you know, that Urshifu Rapid Strike, Incineroar, Rillaboom. So infamous to go ahead and have that very, you know, like solid core, to be honest, when it comes and does cover quite a few options and threats in general with the meta. But I was quite surprised to not actually see any fake outs during that turn. There's no fake outs, just prioritization of making sure that you can pick up a KO on Zacian there if you can from Daniele's side. So G-Sock needs to be very careful. They have that speed advantage with the Zacian being much faster, but they need to try to be absolutely careful with which Pokemon they're going to be targeting, because you're just going to keep on being susceptible to all of Daniele's rotations of that fake out.
Yeah, for sure. And you're talking about Fire, Water, Grass Core, and I feel like these three Pokemon on Daniele's side are the strongest of that core. Sure, the Calyrex, the restricted, was taken out of the match, but these three Pokemon are putting up such a fight by themselves here. Shifu going for the detect, not wanting to be taken out. Incineroar swapping out for that Rillaboom. G-Sock, though, going to U-turn into that slot, get another switch in, but these Pokemon are slowly getting chipped down. There's a lot of pivoting, but I feel like G-Sock's taking more damage all around than Daniele has been.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I just think the fact that you're able to go ahead and whittle down your Pokemon the way that you have from Daniele's side has been absolutely phenomenal. You want to try to slow them down as best as possible with all of the fake outs, all of the intimidate shuffling that they've been able to do. So really, really good from their side of the field. I do feel like G-Sock has had the pressure from their side of the field during certain turns and instances where they could have, they didn't capitalize as much as they could have. But then obviously they have been susceptible to this rotation of the Rillaboom and the Incineroar to the point where it's slowed down the Zacian incredibly. And I think you need to try to make those plays where you need to read those situations of those switch outs, and you have to go for it at this point because the game is starting to slide out of your favor when you do have that speed advantage. You do have the typing to go up against the Urshifu, Rillaboom, and Incineroar. You just need to position correctly to the point and take advantage of the damage output you have with the Zacian.
Yeah, but if Daniele keeps making the switch to be kind of punishing and not letting G-Sock get into a position to attack back, that's where all the trouble is rising. And another switch coming out as soon as the grassy terrain ends, more grassy terrain coming out with that Rillaboom, and fake out as well coming out onto that Zacian. And Daniele looking to be putting some pressure out on the field now. It's going to be that Surging Strikes, and it's going to be into that Zacian. Was just talking about how there's been so much pivoting, but G-Sock taking more damage, and sure enough, that Zacian, it holds on, but it has so little HP left, and there it is. 3 minutes left on the clock. There is 3 Pokemon on each side, but one player looking in a lot better position than the other.
Yeah, and that definitely being Daniele in this case, as they've been playing so well. They've been making the switches that they need to, and they've been absolutely capitalizing off of it. From G-Sock's side, I do feel like there were times where they had to go for the reads, and they just didn't essentially go through with that, because you need to try to grab that momentum. You know what kind of strategy Daniele is going to try to go for. It's going to be getting that rotation going. As we once again see it, you need to take advantage and try to shut it down where you can.
Oh, for sure. But these have been such good pivots. There's been the pivots when Daniele needs to, but then knowing when to be going a little bit more on the offensive. There's been that Surging Strike. There was a Flare Blitz. That Flare Blitz was so big on that turn where the Zacian went for that substitute there. A Detect onto your Shifu means it's going to stay safe, at least for now. But the Play Rough going into that Incineroar slot instead doesn't deal too much. It's going to recover just as much. U-turn from Rillaboom as well, bringing it right back to where it was. But there's not quite enough damage output that's being done here, and we're getting into about a minute left in the match.
Yeah, so I think it may come down to the fact of if someone can even pick up a KO. I think Daniele at the minute seems like they're going to be winning based off of HP remaining, but from G-Sock's side, they need to pick up a KO whilst not losing any of their Pokemon to getting KO'd essentially from their side of the field. So it's quite crucial. I think G-Sock may have been considering waiting on the timer there. They took a bit of a while to switch into the only Pokemon they had available, so it might have just been trying to think it through, or even try to extend that time just a tiny bit more, because it is coming down to the grips of it. It's not over at all for either side, but G-Sock from their side of the field, they need to try do the best that they can. Daniele's just positioned himself very well, and we see the timer there, Sierra. 1 minute countdown.
Yeah, if either player can be securing a KO on this turn, it is over on the spot. If not, based off of the 3 Pokemon available, there's not too often that you're getting to time with 3 Pokemon each on each player's side here, but Daniele's Pokemon in so much more better position. I mean, look at that Urshifu there in comparison to what we're seeing on G-Sock's side there.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a little bit of a tricky one. Of course, there is fake out pressure that G-Sock has here, and Zacian, not wanting to be KO'd, going to be going for the protect. Even though there is that Urshifu there. Fake out from Daniele onto the Urshifu. And Shifu just going to ignore the Zacian altogether, though. Close combat into Incineroar. That is the Pokemon lead there. And with 7 seconds left on the clock, that is going to be the game.
Yeah, that's gonna be the game. Daniele played so well. GSOC played well as well in certain instances. It's just they weren't unfortunately able to capitalize and had better answers to all of the rotations that Daniele was going through. Even though they do have a similar call, they don't have that Urshifu Rapid Strike. They do have the Signal Strike, but in this scenario, I don't think it would have helped. Calyrex was easily dispatched of earlier on in the game. The main problem for GSOC has been this Fire Water Grasp, or this Rillaboom, Urshifu, and the Incineroar, able to be enough to go ahead and push Italy forwards completely and officially with a 6-1 win versus South Korea. Quite triumphant and showing of their form throughout the entirety of this tournament. The European Cup champions are gonna try to go ahead and push to be World Cup champions as well.
Yeah, and what a style to be doing that in, going 6-1 in the semis. This is the part of the competition. These are fantastic teams. They have to be making it at this point. So getting a 6-1 at this point in the competition, you're going up against some good players and some good teams. As we've seen today, these have been fantastic battles, but almost each member of Team Italy here being able to pull out that win and show why they deserve to be going on to finals. And it was such a fun week to watch. And I mean, if this gives any indication on how finals are going to be going, like, whew, there's going to be some absolute bangers on our hands.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fire. You know you're in store for a fire final when you've got such great teams being able to reach this platform, and such informed teams as well. You've got so much experience behind them. You know that the team building with Italy, for example, is just so solid. They have a very good community vibe when they try to go ahead and exchange ideas. I know that they'll be putting a lot of teamwork, a lot of hours in it, and it just shows. It absolutely shows. South Korea, I'm sure they've been doing the exact same, but unfortunately in this scenario, with how things have turned up, they weren't able to be enough to push themselves forwards into the final. So huge commiserations to them. Thank you so much for taking part. It's been amazing watching all of your matches and just having your general presence. It's been so great. So huge props to all of you, to South Korea. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this day one, ladies and gents. Believe it or not, we've got Italy 6, South Korea 1, and we're going to be going into tomorrow's matches with China versus Spain. So yeah, it's gonna be another banger, Sierra, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure. But make sure to stay tuned for tomorrow. If tomorrow is even half as good as today, it's going to be a stream that you do not want to miss. And of course, it's going to be the team that's going to be facing down Italy in the final. So make sure to stay tuned. We'll see you all back here tomorrow.
Take care, everybody.